All right, so without further ado, I'd love to introduce our next speakers. We have Tica Stolpe, Director of Engineering for Interactive Content at Pluralsight. Tica was born and raised in the Dominican Republic and graduated in electrical engineering from Utah State University. She is the Director of Engineering for Interactive Content and has been with Pluralsight for 1.5 years. Prior to joining the Pluralsight team, she spent most of her career in the test and measurement industry, working on both hardware and software products for National Instruments as an engineering leader. Tica will be joined in conversation by our Lena Godoy, Sourcing Credits Specialist at Power to Fly. I'll pass the mic to you all. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And welcome everyone who's listening to us at this moment. Tica, let's start by having you tell us a bit more about yourself, where you're based, and just give us an insight into your career journey, if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So like she mentioned, I was born in the Dominican Republic. And when I was about to graduate high school, I won a scholarship to study in the United States. And I was so excited. My parents, not so much. I got my career in electrical engineering, and I started working for National Instruments as a product support engineer. And through several roles, I was promoted to an engineering manager. I joined Pluralsight a 1.5 years ago as a manager of interactive content, and then was promoted to director of engineering for interactive content as well. So far, it's been an incredible experience to work for a company that has such an impact in our community and that truly cares about their employees. At Pluralsight, I lead several teams that are responsible for our interactive content or hands-on solutions. Pluralsight is an online learning platform, and my teams are responsible for providing the hands-on experiences that allows our learners to practice the things that they're learning in our platform.
Well, that's great to know and hear. How is that you got into Pluralsight? And one question I have for you is what made you decide to study what you studied? Because it's not common, probably, that we hear that you get to study such a thing. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom is a chemical engineer. And so since I was very little, she was very adamant about making sure that I understood math in general. And I just grew to just love math. And actually, when I came to college, I started computer science. But after taking some basic classes on electrical engineering, I just fell in love with our analog and digital circuit classes. And so I changed major to electrical engineering. And let me tell you, going from the Dominican Republic to a calculus class in English, it was very difficult the first little bit.
Yeah, I can't imagine. All right, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I usually or have always felt some curiosity about that specific field, and I think it's one of the things I'm still hoping to complete at some point in my life. But going back to Pluralsight, Pluralsight's approach towards providing tech opportunity to everyone has two primary sides: closing the tech skill gap through education and support on the one hand, and then workforce development programs. Can you tell us a bit more about Pluralsight's efforts towards creating more opportunities for underrepresented groups?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that knowledge is power, and it can open the door to so many opportunities out there. And Pluralsight, through Pluralsight One, is investing to help bridge that knowledge gap in our communities. My favorite two examples of this investment are the Malala Fund, whose mission is to champion every girl's right to 12 years of free, safe, and quality education. Well, with Pluralsight One, they're supporting the tech skills development of not only the staff for the Malala Fund, but also for some of these girls to support and help them grow in these tech skills, which I think is so powerful for our future. The other example is how Pluralsight One partnered with the Utah State Board of Education to advance K through 12 computer science education in Utah. So Pluralsight's headquarters is based in Utah. I actually live in Utah myself. And so this is an example that's near and dear to my heart because my kids go to school here, and is an example of the impact that our organization has in our community, which I think is so powerful.
All right, thanks so much. And can you tell us more about Pluralsight's ERGs, the impact that these have created, and then more about seeColors and Pride at Pluralsight?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pluralsight is committed to creating an inclusive environment. And seeColor is an employee resource group, or ERG, that serves the development of Pluralsight's Black, Indigenous, and people of color by providing leadership development opportunities, mentorship programs, focusing on workplace equity, as well as representation. So an example of how I have experienced their impact is through our recruiting efforts. So my recruiters have always gone above and beyond to provide a list of very diverse candidates. And then the second part of this is retention, right? First, you go and hire these amazing individuals, but then you need to make sure that we're retaining them properly, right? And so these ERG groups are a way to help the minority groups feel like they belong and feel represented, like we have a voice. And so I have also participated in some of the allyship series, which is a way for folks to talk about some of their struggles and how we as a community can work together to build a safe and a collaborative environment, which I think is so important. I have also started attending the mental health series, which again is just one of these forums that help us build a strong support system for all of us at Pluralsight. So seeColor also works closely with our people business partners to gather data and help us ensure equality across the organization, which I think is very important, especially for me as a Latin woman. It's just making sure that that equality exists across the board. And then from my perspective, Pluralsight puts in the effort just to provide resources to help minorities feel represented and have a sense of belonging, right? These ERG groups provide awareness to our Pluralsight community and helps form allyship that makes us stronger as a company, I believe.
That sounds awesome. Can you tell us a bit more about Pluralsight values, or the ones that you consider the main values of Pluralsight that have to do with what we're talking about today, about inclusion and diversity? How can you relate those, or let us know more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pluralsight has several values that we literally like. It's one of these things that for me has been really important because as a company, I feel like we refer to our values on a daily basis. And one of the values that really speaks to me is seeking context with intention, which means you may not understand where a person is coming from. And so seeking context and asking questions about their idea or where they're coming from with that perspective and making sure that you understand without being judged just feels very inclusive to me. And I think it's been really important for me as I lead teams to make sure that the decisions that we're making, that I take their input into account and that we have a good conversation that explains the rationale as to which direction we're headed.
That's awesome. I love that value. Can you tell us, because you mentioned that the first thing was looking for that talent and then keeping them, like the retention part. So how does Pluralsight, apart from some of the things that you've already mentioned, how do you try to build that ambience and that place for everyone to feel included and to feel comfortable and to love being a Pluralsight.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, these mentorship, so there's different programs that I've been a part of that have made a difference for me. One of the ones that I really love is the mentorship program. So every 6 months, Pluralsight runs this mentorship program that pairs you with someone across the organization where you can have some guidance to help you through either how to take your career to the next step, but also how to feel, how to handle certain situations where you just need a second opinion, right? And having that mentor, I feel like has really helped. I have a really great mentor right now, which has helped me through a couple of the challenges that we run on a day-to-day basis. And so that for me has been really important. But from a retention standpoint, so there is that, but there is also, like I mentioned, the employee resource groups. It just builds a sense of community, right? I think we're all working to make a living, and there is the compensation aspect of it, but we spend the majority of our days at work. And so it's so important to build relationships with the people that you work with and to feel like you have a safe environment where you feel safe sharing your perspective with the people in the group, and also feeling like your opinion matters. And so that's a lot of what I see in the leaders of Pluralsight, is that they take everyone's input into account, and I feel like my opinion matters and I feel represented.
That sounds awesome. And can anyone ask to be a mentor, or how do you determine that? Does it have to do with the time that you've been at Pluralsight? How do you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the program is run every 6 months, and it's open enrollment, so anybody can volunteer to be a mentor or a mentee. So you don't even have to be a leader to be a mentor, which is also very powerful, because I think we all have a voice and our opinion matters. And so as a mentor, it's really good from a growth perspective to be able to share your perspective. It's different when it's someone else's problem. And so as a mentor, I think you get to look at the problem from the outside and see different possibilities, and maybe things that the person isn't taking into account. You can bring that into light,
Sounds good. Do you happen to see different departments interacting with this mentorship program?
Absolutely. So as part of this pairing process, you talk about some of your interests, but the people who do the pairing take into account to make sure that you can build relationships across the organization. So it's not just engineers paired with engineers. I get to meet people from the finance organization. I had a mentee who was on the marketing side. And so that was really interesting because I was working really closely with her. So yeah, it's been a really good experience.
Yeah, sounds really interesting. And can you tell us more about how Pluralsight is investing in technology-driven solutions to democratize technology skills?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, technology is always evolving and it changes very, very fast. So Pluralsight is investing in providing tools that help our users learn any technology skills. We have a strong presence in all domains, from software development to data. In fact, just last week during Pluralsight Live, we announced our new security labs. And earlier this summer, we acquired a cloud guru, which is another company, to help reinforce our presence in the cloud space, which is in very high demand right now.
Awesome. And adding on to that, could you educate us on how you partner with other stakeholders and nonprofits to make the benefits reach to the actual persons of need at grassroots level? Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Pluralsight is always looking for opportunities to partner with nonprofits in ways that can help make an impact in our community. I mentioned earlier how the Malala Fund has direct impact into individuals, as well as the K through 12 program that I mentioned. So I am not directly involved with Pluralsight One, but I have found volunteer opportunities through the Pluralsight One organization. So not only do we give back to the community through, excuse me, through our technology skills and having that available to other users, but also we give back to the community by volunteering and providing opportunities for our workforce to volunteer within the community and make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving more details, more information. That's really, really useful. Before this talk, we were talking about the way you get to your career and how you found your passion. And you mentioned something that could be interesting for others to hear. So if you can tell us a bit more how you went through going from your country to the States, and well, the situations you faced being an international student. If you can tell us more about that, that would be awesome as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, I came luckily with a scholarship, which was amazing. But because I came with a scholarship, I had a student visa. And so when I was graduating, I remember to this day, I went to one of the career fairs at the school, and every company that I went to, the conversation would go really well. And at the end of the day, they would say, do you need sponsorship? And it would be like, oh yeah, we can't support the sponsorships. And that was so difficult and demoralizing. I remember sitting down and after going through a few of the booths and just sitting down and thinking, no, this is going to be very, very difficult. So I think at some point I decided I would continue talking, but I would put up front and just ask the question about sponsorship. And so I think for me, it was just that consistency, right? It's okay to be shut down and you're going to run into struggles, but you need to keep trying, because the experience that I had at National Instruments, once I got that opportunity, was absolutely amazing. And so hard times are inevitable, but I think we can face anything.
Yeah, definitely. Really good piece of advice. Now, Ariel Peralta Montan is asking, any tips or guidance on going beyond mentorship, like for instance, getting or becoming a sponsor?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that's a sponsorship from maybe from a Pluralsight One perspective. So as I mentioned, I don't have a lot of experience through the Pluralsight One, like how to become a sponsor. But we do have the Pluralsight One.org that has some information on that. That would be good. So yeah, I think that answers that.
Awesome. And one of my favorite questions to ask is, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh, just reach for the stars. Just keep trying. I think one of the many things that my parents always taught me was just to work really hard for the things that I wanted. And you know what? I may not be I'm a runner. I like to run and I will never be the fastest. And I am not the smartest, but I guarantee you I will work the hardest. And I think we need to sometimes hold on to the things that we can control. And so I would just tell myself to keep trying and going for the things that push me a little out of my comfort zone, and just keep going for that.
Perfect. Yeah, honestly, really good advice. I think that keeping constant in time, as long as you know exactly where you want to go, I think is one of the main things, to keep trying, to keep learning. I guess that's another thing, to keep learning and never stop. As you said, the comfort zone, we need to leave that aside and try to grow out of that comfort zone. What other tips can you provide for growing your career or your skills? If you could give some other tips to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's very important to find a mentor. And when I say that, it doesn't necessarily have to be in your specific organization, but finding someone that can help you build that trust in yourself. I don't know about you, but I personally doubt myself left and right oftentimes. And it's always been so reassuring to have someone believe in you and help you see the things that you're, overlooking in yourself. And so I think it's important to have a mentor just to help you work through that. But at the same time, just go for it, right? Like the worst that can happen is that they say no. Even if you stretch yourself and you apply to a job that you feel like you meet part of the qualifications, but not all of them, I think it's important to just trust the process and trust yourself, right? At some point, I think that we tend to doubt ourselves or sell ourselves short. I know I do that. And so I think it's important to just say, worst that can happen is they say no. So I'm just going to try it and let them make the decision, because I think it just provides you with so much more growth opportunity if you do that.
Yeah, definitely. And if you could give some other piece of advice to people who is doubting about applying to a position, what would you say to them? Is there any advice that you can give as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's one of the things that I do is I like to go through the job description and really try to identify one or two examples when I look at the list of requirements that they're looking for, right? And so coming prepared is makes a huge difference. And so having specific examples to those job requirements and how you can make a difference. And at the end of the day, just be yourself, right? You want to have a job where you're pushing yourself, but also where you feel like you're succeeding. To have a job that's outside and then you're uncomfortable all the time can also like not be good, and so it's just finding that balance of stretching you just enough, and finding how you can be successful in that way.
Cool. I'm just taking notes about that. Really interesting that you share that. And one of the questions that just came, how can we overcome digital fatigue or Zoom fatigue to avoid burnout in these current times?
Oh my gosh, that has been real. So when we all went remote, I actually started at Pluralsight as soon as COVID hit. So I didn't meet anybody face to face. Even my interviews were remote. I didn't meet anybody for like a year. And the struggle is real. And so for me, what I find works is when those meetings end like 5 or 10 minutes earlier, take a break to just step away from the computer for a second and go for a little walk. Something that has worked as well is maybe for some of my one-on-ones, I ask the individual if we can do a phone call instead. And that way I can go outside and go for a little walk as I'm talking. I think it helps just step away from the computer, because sometimes I end my days and I'm just completely exhausted just by being in front of the camera all day, and it's very difficult.
Yeah, it's changed our lives in so many ways, and it's amazing. And now we're trying to go back to some kind of normal, I guess, but we don't know what the normal is. So just wrapping up, because just a few minutes left, and I don't want to steal any of your time or the rest of the audience time. So for everyone tuned in, how can we connect with you and support you in your endeavors?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in LinkedIn. You can find me there. My actual name is Mundeta. So just a little story, little Mundeta in Spanish would be Mundetica. And so I have been Tikka, like my family has called me Tikka since I was little, and it's a very difficult name for people here in the US to mention. So, but my LinkedIn, I have both Mundeta or Tica Stolpe. And so here, I'll type it out as well.
Sure thing, yeah, definitely.
Oops. Autocorrect. There we go.
There you go. Okay. So via LinkedIn, is there any other place that people interested could go to, or anything else where you'll be talking about Pluralsights endeavors?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the career fair, I'm going to have a session on Thursday morning. So there's a couple of sessions there, I believe 3 of them, where Pluralsight is going to have our recruiters there. We're going to be talking about our open positions. So yeah, I would be happy to answer any questions during those sessions, and we'll be there.
All right, it's been a true pleasure talking to you, hearing about your experiences. I was taking notes about what you said. I mean, mental notes, but still, because every time you hear pieces of advices from other people who has lived through different things, they really help you understand things in a different way. And as you said about mentorship and the mentors, how they can see things from a different perspective and give you some advice. So I want to thank you very much for that. I'm not sure if you want to add anything else before we wrap up.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Lina. And I think this is so cool, the Power to Fly initiative that you guys are doing. So thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
No worries. No worries. Thank you.